The crate had been there for years, wedged between a broken coolant unit and a stack of hydro-weld tubing he'd promised someone he'd fix and absolutely never intended to. Andon Lorne was many things: technician, accidental philosopher, part-time liar when it came to delivery dates, but he was not sentimental. That crate, though, it stared at him like a pet he'd forgotten to feed, which was saying something, considering it didn't have eyes. It was only when the power coupler in the algae tank blew out and sprayed the walls with a thin, unpleasant film of green gruel that he finally moved the crate to wipe the mess. And there it was, under years of dust and passive-aggressive neglect, humming faintly. Not in a literal sound, nothing so dramatic. Just that quiet, old-tech hum you felt more than heard. The kind that made the hairs on your arms rise like they were listening to an ancient joke and hadn't quite gotten the punchline. He popped the latches, expecting parts, maybe another obsolete filter unit. Instead, he found a folded uniform, gray, lined with dark piping, with an insignia on the left breast, a spiral intersected by a jagged slash like a blade drawn through a star. He held it up. Huh. You're a long way from parade day, pal. He hadn't seen one of these since, well, a long time, before the bureaucracy renamed the war to a tactical regional disruption. Back when he still believed in things like orders and purpose, in trying to match socks in the morning. He checked the tag. His name was stitched inside, neat and unassuming. Why the hell do I keep my old laundry? The uniform didn't look its age. Still sharp, the fabric stiff and cool like it had been kept in stasis. He shrugged and put it on, partly for nostalgia, partly because it fit better than anything else in his wardrobe. Also maybe because it made him look less like a disheveled hermit and more like a retired, potentially interesting one. Just in case someone ever wandered through this corner of the galaxy and needed their generator repaired and their respect for aging veterans restored. He stepped outside the shed, stretching. The sky above Varela 3 was pale violet today, the kind that looked soft until you remembered the atmosphere had a charming habit of occasionally ionizing small birds. He made his way to the bench under the coolant tower, where Squeeb was attempting, and failing, to stack rusted metal cans into a pyramid. Wearing that thing won't make you 20 again, Squeeb said without looking up. Or taller. Good, I hated being 20. Everything hurt and I was still optimistic. Ah, so no change then. Just different kinds of pain. I missed you too, you little trash toaster. Before the argument could develop into another round of who was more obsolete, the air shifted. Not in temperature, but in intent. Something moved just beyond the far ridge. A shimmer, like light bending around a mistake. Andon stood, frowning. Varela 3 didn't get visitors. It barely got its own mail. Then she appeared. She came walking through the haze like a breath drawn from a different story, her movements fluid, her eyes sharp. She looked like a human woman, almost. Long limbs, smooth features, the expression of someone who understood too much and had decided to be polite about it. Her ears, though, long, tapered, rising like crescents from beneath pale yellow hair, braided with silver thread. Andon took one look and muttered, "Either I'm dreaming, or my dating profile finally paid off." She approached, slow, gaze locked on the symbol on his chest. Her eyes widened, pupils dilating like twin eclipses. Then she dropped to one knee in the dirt, hand over her heart. "This symbol," she said. Her voice trembled, as though caught between awe and disbelief. "You are the one." There was a long pause. Then Andon scratched the back of his head. "Well, that's a hell of a greeting. I usually just get wrong address." She didn't laugh or move. She stayed there kneeling, reverent. Squeeb beeped quietly. "I think she's malfunctioning. Should I spray her with coolant?" Number, let's not treat visitors like faulty circuitry. That's step 3. Her voice came again, softer this time. "We thought you were myth, the Calathanor, the silent flame. You were said to have vanished when the stars burned." "I mostly vanished because I didn't pay my ship taxes," Andon replied, still baffled. She looked up, finally meeting his gaze. Her eyes weren't just reflective. They glimmered. Quantum pigment, maybe. Genetically altered for low-light vision? Some part of him kicked into technician mode, running diagnostics he hadn't used in decades. Her skin had a faint sheen, like it had been exposed to enhanced atmospherics. Not a soldier, not by build, maybe a scout or a messenger. My name is Sebirai, she said, of the Valari remnant. My people believed you were legend, the bearer of the spiral wound, the one who stopped the sky from shattering. He coughed. I once stopped a cafeteria from serving gray paste on Thursdays. Does that count? You carry the sign, she insisted, rising slowly. Your identity resonates with the code. It cannot be falsified. Well, I am very authentic, bought and paid for. He looked down at the symbol again. The spiral. It wasn't just stitched. It glowed faintly now. A low-frequency pulse, almost imperceptible unless you were watching closely. Okay, he said. Say I'm this. What did you call it? Calithanor? She nodded solemnly. Say I am that guy. What now? You must come with me. The vault has stirred. The star path awaits your command. Of course it does, Andon muttered. I swear, the last time I answered a call like this, I ended up cleaning toilets on a mining rig for 7 months. Sebere tilted her head. Is that part of your ascension ritual? He blinked. Number. That was just a bad contract. She reached into her coat and pulled out a small holodisc. A rotating pattern unfurled above it. A star map. Lines connecting systems. Nodes blinking with quiet urgency. Andon's eyes narrowed. He recognized some of those coordinates. Places that hadn't been mentioned in years. Behind him, Squeeb beeped again. If she's a hallucination, can we at least keep her? She's more polite than you. Andon sighed. The universe, it seemed, had decided to kick him square in the past. He looked again at Sebirai, at her earnest, waiting expression, then at the uniform hugging his frame like it remembered things he didn't. All right, he said, but I drive. Her eyes shimmered. You will bring the spiral to balance. I will bring snacks. That's what I bring. Balance is a strong word. She smiled, the first expression she'd shown beyond reverence. Then we begin. Squeeb rolled toward them, muttering, I just knew today would be dramatic. I didn't even finish recharging. By the time the sun dipped behind Virella 3's broken ridgeline, Andon had learned 3 things. 1. Sebirai had absolutely no sense of metaphor. Everything she said was literal, which made talking to her feel like negotiating with a particularly poetic navigational AI. 2. She had been watching him for 3 days before revealing herself, which made her either a very committed prophet or the galaxy's most polite stalker. And 3, she was absolutely certain the fate of multiple star systems now hinged on his willingness to leave his hut, his algae tanks, and his semi-functional coffee unit. This whole destiny thing, he said as he threw a wrench into his satchel. Does it come with dental coverage? Sebirai blinked at him, visibly confused. I am unfamiliar with Terran rituals involving teeth. He opened his mouth to explain, then closed it. Never mind, just destiny sounds expensive. The plan, or what passed for one, was to head off-world before anyone else noticed the symbol had reawakened. According to Sebirai, the signal had been sent the moment he put on the uniform, which he noted bitterly meant he probably should have stayed in his bathrobe. They needed a ship, and unfortunately, Andon's old freighter had been scavenged for parts long ago, mostly by himself. The only vessel nearby that hadn't collapsed under its own rust was parked 3 hills east, an abandoned long-haul transport once used for ore. It belonged to a trader who owed Andon several favors and 1 angry goat-sized plasma burn. We're not stealing it, Andon insisted as they approached. We're reappropriating it, temporarily. Under the authority of galactic emergency procedures. Probably Section 9B? There is no such code. There might be. Let's pretend there is until someone tells us otherwise. The freighter looked like it had been designed by a committee who couldn't agree on a shape and gave up halfway through. 1 engine pod leaned to the left like it was drunk. The entry ramp squealed like a dying weasel, and the interior smelled like warm metal and unresolved trauma. This is not what I imagined, Sebirai said, surveying the dim cargo bay. It's got charm, Andon replied, kicking a crate labeled cabbage, perishable since 42 cycles ago. And it only exploded once, mostly inwards. He slid into the pilot seat, flicked a few switches, and waited for the ancient systems to wind themselves awake. The console buzzed with dust, static, and what sounded suspiciously like muffled laughter. Ship AI is still partially functional, he muttered, tapping the screen. Or haunted. One of the two. Severai strapped herself in with a calm precision that suggested she did this kind of thing more often than she admitted. Her hand rested briefly on the wall beside her, fingers tracing a soft rhythm. Andin thought it was probably a Valari prayer or something ceremonial. Then she said without looking at him, "The gravity dampeners are misaligned by 3 degrees. He turned to her. "Are you part technician?" "I learned quickly." "Wonderful. Then you can clean the filters after we breach atmosphere. I'm allergic to space mold." With an unhealthy groan, the ship lifted off. The thrusters sputtered, caught, and finally roared as they ascended into Varela 3's ion-heavy sky. Lightning crawled through the upper stratosphere, painting jagged scars across the violet haze. Andin held the controls steady as the ship bucked like a drunken horse. Once they punched through, the stars opened up, wide and humming with cold old light. Severay looked at him, serious as always. "You feel it, don't you?" He didn't want to admit it, but he did. Like something in the core of him had stirred. Not a memory. Not quite. More like a gravitational pull, subtle but insistent. A tension in the chest, like a string drawn taut. "It's gas," he said finally. "Star food never sits right with me." But she didn't laugh. Instead, she activated a projection on the console between them. A map unfolded, not just of star systems, but of trajectories. Curved lines, arcing like petals in a spiral. Points along the lines pulsed in red. "This," she said, "is the path of the Calathanor. It's encoded in our vaults, linked to a harmonic resonance generated by your insignia. These points have been locked for decades, until today." Andin stared at the map. He recognized none of it, or so he thought, until one of the points blinked and a name surfaced from some forgotten chamber in his brain. "Calathemus," he said softly. "That's an ice giant, isn't it? Rings full of metal fragments from broken satellites. I think I serviced a mining rig out there once. Hated the place. Too many ghosts. Calathemus House is the first Starpath vault. It was built before the war. Before the split." "The split?" Seviray's expression didn't change, but her posture stiffened. "When the Valari and humans were still aligned, some among us foresaw what was coming. They encoded memories, predictions, messages, into vaults, stations designed to awaken only when the Calathanor returned. Your arrival has triggered the first signal. The spiral has begun turning again." "Right," he rubbed his temples. "Still catching up. So I'm supposed to, what? Wake these vaults up? Find more people who want to kneel dramatically at me?" "It is not worship," she said. "It is recognition. Our survival depends on what you choose next. And here I thought my biggest decision today would be instant noodles or leftover stew." Squeeb's voice crackled over the intercom. "For the record, I vote stew. The noodles scream when boiled. Creepy. Not helping, Squeeb." As the freighter angled toward the jump lane, Seviray reached into a small satchel and withdrew a slender, metallic shard. She placed it on the console, where it floated, emitting a soft glow. "This is the key," she said, "to the vault. But it only responds to your biosignature." The shard pulsed as it hovered in front of him. Andin hesitated, then touched it. Instantly, a thin thread of energy connected the shard to his uniform insignia. A soft hum filled the cabin. "Great," he muttered. "Now I'm a lockpick." Seviray turned to look at him fully now, the intensity in her eyes softer, but no less steady. "You are more than that." "Please don't say chosen." "I'm already allergic to mold and responsibility." "You're not chosen," she said. "You were built." That stopped him cold. "Built?" She nodded. "Forged from memory, shaped by intention. You are not who you think you are, Andin Lorne." He stared at her, at the pulsing shard, at the star map that bore his name in languages he'd never learned. And for once, he had no joke. No easy line to toss between the silence. Squeeb buzzed again. "I feel like we skipped several important updates in your operating manual." Andin exhaled, slow. "Yeah, I think we all did." The jump into Calthemus space was uneventful in the same way a sneeze in zero gravity was uneventful. Small, fast, and followed by floating regret. The ship rattled as if resenting the sudden tug of gravitational math, and Squeeb made a noise that might have been concern or indigestion. Andin clenched the armrest and gritted his teeth. You said the inertial dampeners were online. They were, Sevier replied, calm as ever. But the alignment slipped during the last thruster calibration, slightly. Slightly? My stomach's now located somewhere near my spine. You will adapt. That's what they said when high-waisted pants came back in style. Lies. The freighter's viewport flickered with interference as they coasted into the shadow of Calthemus, a massive, swirling blue orb with rings that shimmered like broken glass. Orbiting just beyond the magnetic ridge was a derelict station, squat and hunched like it didn't want to be noticed. There were no running lights, no beacons, just the faint hum of something ancient that had forgotten how to sleep. Andon squinted. You sure this is it? Looks like a haunted warehouse. In space. This is the place, Sevier said. The first vault. Our history begins here. Great. If something starts hissing at me, I'm blaming you. As they approached the docking port, Andon activated the magnetic clamps and waited for the system to grind into place. The clamps responded with a reluctant groan, followed by a thunk that sounded suspiciously final. Well, he said, either we're docked or we just broke off the front door. Sevier stood without hesitation, clutching the key shard. The vault will open to your presence. Do not be afraid. I'm not afraid. I'm just appropriately nervous. That's a healthy emotional response to unknown alien ruins and cryptic prophecies. They stepped into the airlock, the hatch sealing behind them with a hiss. The corridor inside was colder than it should have been. The walls bore markings, Valeri script etched with something finer than any tool Andon had ever used. Light flickered along the grooves as they walked, recognizing Sevier's shard and, possibly, him. As they turned the first corner, a panel slid open with a soft chime. Inside was a humanoid figure, metallic but clearly not a machine in the conventional sense. Its eyes blinked to life as it stepped forward. Greetings, Calathanor, it said. You are late. Andon blinked. You what? I have been waiting. Protocol states that the flame would arrive within 180 cycles of the last broadcast. You have exceeded that limit by 71 cycles. Well, I got stuck in traffic, Andon muttered. There was a war and paperwork. The construct turned to Sevier. Companion designation not recognized. Submit biological signature. Sevier held up her shard. The construct scanned it with a beam that tickled Andon's elbow somehow. Signature verified. Access granted. The wall shuddered, then slid back to reveal a chamber deeper than the ship itself. It extended downward in spirals, with steps carved into the edges, like someone had decided gravity was optional. Strange symbols hovered midair, rotating slowly, and above them all hung a floating construct that looked like a miniature galaxy held in stasis. Andon stared. Okay, this is new. Sevier's voice was soft. This is the memory spiral, the first of the vault's 3 cores. You must connect to it. Define connect. Touch it. I'm not licking it, if that's where this is going. Squeeb's voice crackled faintly through his comm. I have a bad feeling about this. Also, the ship's tea dispenser just started leaking lava. Is that related? Andon stepped forward slowly until he was directly beneath the floating construct. The moment he reached up and made contact, his mind flared. It wasn't pain, it was clarity. Too much of it, all at once. 1,000 images rushed in, cities of light suspended in clouds, voices singing in languages he didn't know, a hand held out across a battlefield. His own. He saw a ship unlike anything he'd ever piloted. A white spiral painted across its hull. And then darkness. A choice. Something collapsing. Not outside, but inside. He staggered back, breath shallow. Sevier caught him. What did you see? I think I remembered something that didn't happen, or hasn't happened yet. That is how the spiral speaks. Well, it's got a real cryptic way with words. Also, I think it shorted out my eyebrows. The construct spoke again. You have passed the initial rite, 1 of 3. The second awaits at Varos Kel. Andon flinched. That's in the dead zone. You want me to go there? The whole sector's riddled with mining bots and unpaid mercenaries. You are not required to go alone, the construct replied. Others have begun to awaken. Some are allies. Others are less so. Terrific, Andon said. It's a reunion tour. As they made their way back to the ship, the lights behind them dimmed, the vault sliding back into silence. The shard in Severe's hand pulsed twice, then dimmed. She turned to him, her voice steady. There are more like you. The memory template you carry is not singular. If others have been activated, then things are about to get crowded. And dangerous. I already figured that part out when I touched the galaxy snow globe in there. Squeeb met them at the ramp, covered in soot and muttering. So the tea dispenser was cursed. Andon sank into the pilot chair and stared out at the ice giant below. His fingers twitched on the controls. All right, let's set course for Varos Kel. You're accepting the path? Severe asked. Number, I'm avoiding the part where the galaxy collapses because I ignored a talking orb. Big difference. She nodded, clearly satisfied either way. As the ship turned toward the next star, Andon leaned back inside. Remind me to start charging for this prophecy nonsense. Galactic harrowing doesn't pay nearly enough. Actually, Squeeb said, I just checked. There's a bounty out for someone matching your description. Great, Andon muttered. First, I'm a myth. Now I'm wanted. I miss being boring. Andon decided somewhere between the 6th warning from the navigation system and the 3rd coil sparking under his seat that Varos Kel had absolutely no business being a place anyone willingly visited. The system was a dead zone, all right? Dead of commerce, dead of law, and possibly dead of taste, if the vendors he'd once seen near its moons were still hawking glow-in-the-dark stew with questionable meat cubes. Space around Varos Kel shimmered with solar interference and old satellite ghosts that whispered telemetry like they were trying to sell him secondhand dreams. Sevirai sat in the co-pilot seat, her hands folded and expression unreadable, which made Andon twitchier than usual. People being calm before terrible things happen was never a good sign. So, he said, filling the silence like a bad karaoke machine, what's the vault here going to do? Make me see my own birth? Ask me a riddle? Maybe make me arm wrestle an AI with daddy issues? I do not know, she replied. Each vault was designed with variation. Adaptation. It will show you what you need. That's vague and suspicious. You sure these things weren't made by retired philosophers with too much time? It is possible. I was joking. I was not. A warning klaxon chirped. Squeeb's voice followed, slightly static-laced. There's a ship on our tail. Sleek. Fast. It's either here to escort us or vaporize us in a socially awkward misunderstanding. Andon leaned forward. Visuals? The console flickered and a ship materialized on screen. Sharp lines, dark hull, a telltale glow along its nose like a hungry animal. Andon recognized the model, Scyther-class interceptor. Not made for comfort. Definitely made for being a pain. Broadcasting standard greetings, he said. No response, Squeeb replied, but they're charging weapons. Andon sighed. Of course they are. Sevire didn't flinch. They may be one of the others. You say that like it's a normal thing. They are activated like you, but not all chose balance. Great, evil twins. That's what we were missing. The Scyther ship didn't wait for further introductions. A bolt of plasma streaked across the void and missed their port thruster by what Andon guessed was about half a swear word. Evasive, he barked, rolling the freighter hard to starboard. The entire cabin groaned, and Squeeb made an oh no, oh yes noise over the comms that Andon chose to ignore. I thought you said we weren't alone, he shouted. I said others have awakened, Sevire replied evenly. You assumed they would be friendly. I make a lot of bad assumptions. This is just my latest. He slammed the jump thrusters into a hard pitch, and the freighter dipped toward the surface of Varos Kel's 4th moon. Not the safest maneuver, not even a legal one in most sectors. But atmospheric chaos was excellent cover if you didn't mind barfing sideways through a cloud of electrical ash. They pierced the upper layer with a screech of metal and fire. Static crawled over every sensor. The pursuing ship stayed close, too close, like it was tethered. Any chance you've got a secret cannon or surprise friend in this vault? Andon muttered. No. Good. I was afraid I'd get my hopes up. He guided the ship low across the moon's jagged terrain, flipping scanners to passive to avoid detection. The enemy vessel looped up, circling like a hawk waiting for a mistake. There, Sevire said, pointing to a ridge half buried in obsidian frost. That's the entrance. How do you even know? Never mind, of course you know. Magic long ears. We call it ancestral tuning. I call it uncanny and convenient. He brought the freighter down hard behind the ridge. The landing gear screeched. Dust swallowed them. They jumped out before the mist cleared, sprinting across the cracked ground toward what looked like a vertical slit in the rock. Security system? He asked. Most likely. Traps? Possibly. You're terrible at comforting people. She touched the shard to the seam. The stone melted open like wax, revealing a tunnel lined with lightless panels. They entered just as another blast struck the ridge behind them, throwing up a curtain of flame. The tunnel sealed. Silence swallowed them. For a moment, Andon just breathed. Then he looked at her, wild-eyed. Tell me this one doesn't require soul bonding with a space worm. Sevier tilted her head. That was the 5th vault. This one is simpler. I'm not sure I believe you anymore. They moved down the tunnel until it widened into a hexagonal chamber. At its center hovered a disk, pulsing with light. Not floating, oscillating like it was humming with intent. Andon approached it slowly. So what's the trick this time? Step on it. Of course. He stepped onto the disk. The world twisted, or rather, it unfolded. He was not in the chamber anymore. He stood in a city, not one he knew, but one that knew him. Towers shimmered with light. People stopped and stared, some whispering, others reaching. The symbol on his chest glowed bright. Then it shifted. The light dimmed. The crowd turned away. The city fell silent. Then the sky cracked. Ships, thousands of them, darkened the horizon. His reflection appeared in a mirror of smoke, and the face staring back at him wasn't his. It was a younger version, with harder eyes. It said simply, "You let them fall." The vision shattered. He dropped to his knees in the vault chamber, gasping. Sevier caught him. What did you see? I saw... He hesitated. A choice. I chose wrong. I think I've done it before. That was a possible echo, she said. Not a prophecy, but a memory seated by the original mind. You carry a part of him. So do the others. Some follow his fear. Others, his hope. I didn't even ask for this. I was growing fish in a tub and trying to forget what real food tasted like. Yet you are here. The wall lit up. A console emerged with a single word on it. Confirmed. Andon touched it. A path opened. Coordinates to a 3rd vault. The spiral was accelerating. They turned to go. The passage reopened, and the outside was quiet. The enemy ship was gone. Squeeb, Andon said over comms. Status? Ship's intact. Enemy vessel vanished. No transmissions. Just poof. Might have sensed the vault opening and bailed. Or maybe I scared them off with my poetry. You don't write poetry. I do now. Crisis inspires me. Andon groaned. Prep for launch. We're done here. As he and Sevier walked back through the ash, he glanced at her. How many of these are there? 7, she said. 7 vaults. 7 memories. He sighed. By the 7th one, I expect answers, coffee, and maybe a complimentary fruit basket. I can arrange the coffee. See, that's why I keep you around. Andon stared at the coordinates glowing on the screen, trying not to groan too loudly. The next vault sat nestled in a nebula cluster known unofficially as the Sneeze, because flying through it felt like allergic reaction therapy with lasers. It was dense, twitchy with magnetic interference, and inhabited by creatures that looked like space jellyfish, but could eat your navigation systems like a buffet sampler. We're going there, he asked, pointing at the screen as if maybe someone had made a typo. Yes, Sevier answered without blinking. Perfect. I always wanted to take a cruise through the galactic equivalent of a beehive stuffed with fog and emotional baggage. Then your dream is coming true. Andon gave her a sideways look. That was sarcasm, by the way. I know. I chose to ignore it. They hit the edge of the nebula 12 hours later. The ship's hull moaned like it had regrets, and even the inertial dampeners made a sad little beep, as if considering early retirement. Every 5 minutes, the sensors gave wildly contradictory readings. According to one readout, they were moving at sublight speeds. According to another, they were simultaneously standing still and dancing the tango with a pocket black hole. Let me guess, Andon muttered. This vault's going to make me face my childhood fear of public speaking or being hugged by a glowing alien librarian. You will learn what you are meant to learn. You know, one of these days I'm going to ask a question and get a straight answer. Unlikely, they drifted deeper into the nebula. Sevier adjusted a dial on the shard she wore, and the mist ahead of them parted. Not physically, but perceptually. What looked like dense fog resolved into a strange lattice of floating stone structures, spiraling through the cloud like broken cathedral pieces. And that's new, Andon said. Valari memory towers, she explained. They were once used to store impressions, echoes of places, people, ghosts in a sense. Wonderful, I was just thinking this trip could use more ghosts. The freighter settled near one of the larger structures, anchoring awkwardly against a spinning platform. As the airlock hissed open, Andon grabbed his utility belt, a power lamp, and a protein bar that claimed to taste like berries but had the consistency of carpet. The vault was a hollow cylinder of stone, with inscriptions crawling along its inside like slow-moving lightning. The walls vibrated slightly, like a drum that had forgotten its song. A narrow path led into darkness, and Andon took exactly 3 steps before whispering, "Please let there not be spiders, space spiders, or anything with more than the legally recommended number of legs." Sevier's ears twitched. "There is movement ahead. Why does that not reassure me?" They stepped into the central chamber. Unlike the others, this one had no floating artifact, no shimmering console. Instead, there was a seat, just a single worn, stone-like chair at the center, as if someone had long ago taken a break and just never got back up. Andon narrowed his eyes. "You're not about to tell me that I have to sit in the weird memory chair, are you?" Sevier gestured calmly. "It is not dangerous. That's not what you said when we activated the second vault and I saw myself get vaporized in slow motion. You're not vaporized now, are you? That's not the point." Still, he approached the chair and sat. The moment he did, light burst from the stone beneath him and enveloped his body like a sheet of plasma. Sevier didn't move. Andon's head fell back, eyes wide, and he wasn't seeing the chamber anymore. He was standing in a crowd again, but this time he was shouting, not from pain, but command. His voice was layered, overlapped by another deeper tone. His words were foreign but familiar. Soldiers moved. Ships lifted off. Then he saw them, Valari and humans side by side, their eyes focused on something unseen, something rising. He knew the feeling, hope, unity, but it shifted. Now he stood alone in a burned field. The sky cracked, blackened. A figure approached, his mirror again, the other. "They followed you," the other said, "and you led them to ruin." "That's not true," Andon replied, his voice distant even to his own ears. "You think you can rewrite the path, but it's written in the blood of stars." Then everything shattered. He gasped awake. The room was silent again. Sevier stood beside him. "What did it show you?" "People," he whispered, "following me, trusting me, and then someone like me telling me I failed them." She nodded slowly. "You are converging. The echoes are aligning with your own pattern. The memories are becoming yours." "Great," Andon said, standing shakily. "So now I have existential imposter syndrome with a side of inherited guilt." Squeeb's voice buzzed through the comms. Slight issue. There's movement outside. Big movement. Like multi-limbed and curious about our ship kind of movement." Andon turned to Sevier. "Are you about to tell me those memory towers don't just store ghosts? They attract something worse?" She didn't answer, which meant the answer was yes. They ran back down the corridor, the walls vibrating harder now. Outside, the mist had thickened again, swirling unnaturally. Shapes moved in it. Tall, spindly things with too many joints and not enough patience. Squeeb had powered up the freighter's defense systems and was apparently attempting to communicate with the nearest entity using classical opera broadcasts through static. "Don't ask," he said as they climbed aboard. "It worked once on a gas-based Predator in Sector 9. Andon hit the throttle. The freighter rose like a tired bat out of a sneeze cloud, dipped under a tendril of whatever had started reaching for them, and bolted. "I think that one tried to wave at us," he muttered. "Unlikely," Sevier said. "More probable it was sensing your memory field. I liked it better when I was a nobody." "You were never a nobody," she replied. "Just dormant." As they cleared the nebula's edge and the stars became visible again, Andon slumped into the pilot's seat and pulled up the new coordinates. Where's next? Sevirai tapped the shard. I believe it is a place called Ferris 17, an archive moon. Oh, good, he said. Let's go to the library. That's where all the best nightmares hang out. Squeeb clicked on the tea dispenser. Lava came out again. No one was surprised. Ferris 17 loomed in the viewport like a forgotten gear in a machine too large to remember what it was turning. The archive moon wasn't a natural satellite, but an artificial construction. Older than any recorded map and shaped in a way that made geometry textbooks wince. Massive rings of data columns orbited the central core, each filled with crystalline nodes, rotating at different speeds for reasons no one could convincingly explain without charts and a nervous breakdown. Andon tapped a finger against the controls. So this is where ancient civilizations stored their equivalent of late-night journal entries and awkward romantic poetry. Knowledge, Severay corrected. The core receives from across the spiral. It may hold what you need to understand the seventh vault. Or a user manual. That'd be handy. Maybe some snack recipes. They docked awkwardly on one of the outer platforms, next to a maintenance pod that looked like it hadn't moved since before sarcasm was invented. The hatch opened to a corridor with gravity, though the gravity clearly had commitment issues. It pulsed slightly, as if it needed coffee to stabilize. Squeeb refused to disembark, citing personal safety protocols and the fact that libraries made him sneeze. The interior was quiet. Not the kind of quiet that came from silence, but the heavy padded kind that seemed to press against your thoughts like insulation. As they stepped deeper into the structure, the walls shifted subtly, tiles reordering themselves, light bending with no clear source. Andon glanced around. It's reorganizing itself. It is recognizing you. Great. Soon it'll ask for my favorite color and try to match the decor. They reached a central chamber where the floor opened into a spiral of stairways going both down and sideways. Gravity had decided to get creative. At the center stood a pedestal, and on it, a metallic orb suspended midair. It rotated slowly, displaying fragments of holographic text, diagrams, and snippets of long-dead languages. Seviray stepped forward, placing her shard near the orb. The two pulsed in harmony. The archive will open to you, she said, but only you. I don't like that only you part, Andon muttered. Still, he approached. The orb shimmered, then expanded into a curtain of starlight, and he walked through it. The world changed. Again. He stood in a vast hall, no roof, just an endless sky made of constellations. Rows of figures lined the ground, their features blurred, their voices whispering in synchrony. He recognized one of them, himself, another version, wearing full command armor, eyes focused, expression grim. You came back, the figure said. I don't know where I went, Andon answered. You walked away, left the war behind, left us behind. I didn't, but you're here now. The figure pointed to a rising storm in the stars. Ships without form, swarms of dark light, creeping toward the spiral's heart. They're coming again, and this time we don't have you. Andon felt something tug at his chest, as if his blood recognized the gravity of the vision. Then another voice broke through. Oh, not this again. Honestly, you starborn types get so dramatic. The sky shattered like glass, and he was suddenly standing in a room filled with books. Real, actual, bound books. Dusty, with covers. A librarian floated past him upside down, sipping tea from a cup shaped like a dodecahedron. What? Andon managed. Alternate data access chamber, the librarian said. Sometimes the core gets stuck in emotional memories. I override with narrative abstraction. Easier on the nerves. You're part of the archive? I am the archive, the librarian replied cheerfully, or at least its conversational interface. You want answers? Sit down. No, not there. That one bites. Andon sat carefully. You're looking for understanding, the librarian went on, now rearranging the air into symbols. The memory shard bonded to you is more than a key. It's a map. You've activated 5 vaults. Each gave you a piece of the original. Him. You. The old one. I've been seeing things. Memories. People following me. A war? They weren't following you. They were following what you stood for. Unity. Strategy. Sacrifice. The spiral nearly fell once. You stopped it. But memory fades. So the Valari built this network. Vaults, shards, to preserve your pattern, to awaken it again when the spiral needed it. And now it does? The librarian's teacup glitched, became a flower, then a cup again. The others have returned. The sixth vault will strengthen your bond. The seventh will let you choose. Choose what? Who you are, and what comes next. Andon stared. So I'm a copy? Number. You're a new life grown from an old path. But paths twist. You could become like him, or you could become something else. I didn't ask for this. No one ever does, the librarian said gently. But it's here now, and you've already begun. The room flickered. The starlit hall returned for a moment, then vanished. Andon stood again before the orb. Severai waited. Well, she asked. I got life advice from a floating librarian who may or may not be a metaphor. And also, I might be a reincarnated war hero designed by committee. She nodded as if that made perfect sense. They returned to the freighter. Squeeb offered them both tea from the dispenser. It was still lava. So what did you learn? Squeeb asked. That I'm part of a giant cosmic reboot, Andon said, and I'm supposed to choose something soon. Sounds ominous. Yup. The coordinates for the next vault appeared. Sebirai stared at them, her expression unreadable. It's on a planet called Nexus, she said. Andon groaned. That place with the sentient weather and the gravity that hiccups? Yes. Fantastic. Let's pack extra socks. The planet Nexus made its reputation as a kind of cosmic prank. Everything about it seemed like it had been designed by a group of interstellar engineers who couldn't agree on a single environmental setting. So they just checked every box on the form and called it a day. The atmosphere changed color depending on your mood. The wildlife communicated through synchronized dance, and the gravity occasionally forgot itself and took a short nap, leaving travelers momentarily weightless until it remembered to get back to work. Andon stared at the shifting surface through the viewport, watching lightning form geometric patterns in the sky above an ocean that rolled uphill for no good reason. So, he said flatly, just to confirm, the next vault is on that thing. Yes, Severay replied, adjusting her shard. It is beneath the singing plateau. The one that sings? Naturally. Squeeb leaned into the cockpit, antennae twitching. You want me to stay with the ship? I'm not great with spontaneous operatic terrain. It makes me nervous. Andon nodded. Yes, please guard the ship. And the lava dispenser. And whatever that thing in cargo hold 3 is that keeps humming in Morse code. They descended in the shuttle, which bounced mildly against an invisible pressure pocket halfway down, Nixus's version of turbulence. As they landed, a high-pitched tone resonated from the rocks beneath them, like the planet had just sighed in a key only slightly annoying to the human ear. Sebirai stepped out first, unfazed by the odd gravity shifts. Andon followed, floating for a moment before the ground reasserted its presence and smacked his boots back into place. Do we knock? He asked as they approached the plateau. No need. It already knows we're here. Of course it did. The singing plateau didn't just emit music. It responded to movement. Each footstep triggered a chord, every word a harmony. As they walked, the stone beneath their feet played a minor key version of what might have been Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star if arranged by an alien jazz quartet. I feel like I should have brought a top hat, Andon muttered. Maybe tap shoes. The center of the plateau opened with a deep, resonant hum, revealing a staircase that spiraled downward into a cavern, glowing with soft bioluminescence. Floating crystals illuminated glyphs on the walls, symbols Andon recognized from earlier vaults, though now they pulsed in sequences, like waiting for a password. Seviray approached the crystal altar at the chamber center, placing her shard onto a narrow groove. It glowed. Andon took a deep breath. Okay, let's see what psychological sci-fi obstacle course we're dealing with today. The shard pulsed. Light enveloped him again, though this time he didn't feel transported. Instead, the chamber shifted around him, walls folding back, floor stretching out into a simulated battlefield. But nothing moved. Dozens of figures stood frozen, humans and Valari, all staring ahead. At the far end, a version of himself, older, armored, commanding. Not this guy again, Andon said. He is the imprint of your predecessor, Sevire said beside him. But now the vault shows you his thoughts, his final decision. The image of the older Andon stepped forward and began speaking. Not to them, but to the frozen soldiers. They will come in waves. You will want to break. Some of you will, but remember we are not fragments. We are one spiral, one voice. Andon felt the weight of those words settle into his chest. I don't remember saying that, he said. You didn't, Sevire said gently. But you might. The scene dissolved. This time, instead of fading to black, it transformed into something far stranger. A small, quiet room full of humming devices, blinking softly in an arcane rhythm. A round table sat at the center, where 3 versions of Andon were playing a card game with a robot dealer shaped like a vending machine. What in the... This is a memory simulation, a stress test. I think it's a therapy session hosted by my subconscious, the robot beeped. Your move, Captain. Which one of us? All 3 Andons said at once. Sevire pointed at the real one. That one. Andon sat down reluctantly. The cards bore unfamiliar suits. Stardust, echoes, flame, gravity. He had a full hand of flame and no idea what that meant. The robot slid a cup of what looked like hot liquid determination across the table. It tasted like motivation mixed with regret and one poorly timed joke. I'm supposed to learn something here, aren't I? Always, Sevire said, though often what you learn isn't what you expected. The table began to spin, and one of the other Andons turned into smoke. The remaining double leaned across. You're not a copy, you're a variation, he said. You don't have to make the same choice I did. And what choice was that? To sacrifice everything for one last victory. Andon blinked. The room vanished. The vault dimmed. He stood alone in the chamber now, Sevire watching silently. What did you see? She asked. A decision I haven't made yet, he replied, and a warning. They left the plateau as it shifted tone again, this time playing a triumphant melody in 7/8 time that made walking really uncomfortable. Back at the shuttle, Squeeb greeted them with his usual optimism. So, did the rocks sing you your destiny, or just give you indigestion? A bit of both, Andon said, brushing off a melody line that had tried to stick to his sleeve. Squeeb handed him a packet of dehydrated noodles. You're gonna need carbs if we're heading where I think we are. Andon looked at the screen. The 7th and final vault had revealed its coordinates. The system name blinked. Hades 12. Well, that doesn't sound ominous at all, he said. It is where the cycle ends, Sevire said quietly. Squeeb slurped his noodles. I vote we bring extra snacks, and maybe a second escape plan. Andon nodded. Maybe this time the vault will just give me a nice hug and a cup of tea. Unlikely, Sevire said. Yeah, Andon sighed. Didn't think so. The shuttle landed on Hades 12 with a resigned metallic sigh, as though it too understood this was where all the fun ended. The planet's surface was a blistered mix of obsidian dunes and metallic spires, rising from the ground like forgotten antennae. Lightning forked sideways through a green-tinted sky, as if the laws of weather had quit halfway through orientation. Andon stepped out, squinting against the harsh light. Squeeb refused to leave the shuttle. Again. This time he'd barricaded himself behind a makeshift fortress of ration boxes and claimed diplomatic immunity as an emotionally unavailable ambassador. Tell the vault if it wants to emotionally challenge me, it can come in here and do it like a grown-up. Andon left him to it, walking beside Sevire across a cracked valley that hummed beneath their feet. The air buzzed with static, and he had the distinct impression the planet was listening. This is it, Sevire said softly. The 7th vault. You know, part of me was hoping the final challenge would be more like a quiz, maybe a crossword. I believe it is more comprehensive. Oh, good. I brought my emotional baggage. The ground opened without a sound, revealing a shaft that descended far deeper than gravity's comfort zone. They rode a platform down, surrounded by shifting panels of light. Images flickered across the walls. Moments from Andon's journey, the abandoned station, the archivist moon, the singing plateau. All of it folded into one continuous memory. At the bottom, the chamber was circular and vast, lined with 7 obelisks, one for each vault. 6 of them pulsed gently. The 7th was dormant, In the center hovered a figure. Andon blinked. It was him, but not him as before. Not an echo or a simulation. This one was fully real, fully present, eyes locked onto him with the weight of someone who remembered too much. "You've come far," the other Andon said. "Please tell me you're not another fragment of a long-lost personality prototype." "Number, I'm the original." Andon frowned. "You're alive?" "For now." Severay didn't move. Her hands were still, but her posture shifted, rigid, wary. "You built all this?" "I led them to build it. After the war, I knew the spiral wouldn't survive another one without preparation. So we encoded knowledge, strategy, memory into shards, into people, into you. You couldn't trust the future to take care of itself?" The original Andon smiled faintly. "I didn't trust myself not to try again." Andon stepped closer. "So what happens now?" "You choose," the original said. "The shards have awakened. The vaults have tested not just your memory, but your instinct, your humor, your resilience. You are not me. You never were." "That's comforting. But you can be what comes after, not a copy, a successor." Andon glanced around. The obelisks pulsed together now, harmonizing in a pattern. One of them opened. A seat, simple and metallic, emerged. "This is a lot of work for a glorified promotion," he muttered. "Everything has led to this," Severay said gently. "We believed in the symbol, but now we must believe in the person behind it." Andon looked at the seat, then at the original, who was slowly fading, his form flickering like a dying star. "I'm not sure I'm ready." "No one ever is," the original whispered. Then he was gone, leaving only silence and a faint warmth in the air. Andon sat. The vault responded instantly. Energy arced through the obelisk, and images spilled out. Star maps, fleet signatures, forgotten languages, pathways of thought and leadership. They didn't overwhelm him. They flowed through him. The chamber became sky, not a hallucination, but a projection of the spiral. Thousands of systems, millions of lives. And in the middle, a beacon pulsed where the vault had been. The network was reawakening. Messages rippled outward. Ships turned toward the light. Andon stood. "Well," he said, rubbing his hands together. "No pressure." They returned to the shuttle where Squeeb greeted them by throwing a ration box at Andon's head. "I was emotionally compromised and you left me. Again. Would you believe I was busy becoming a myth? I would believe you were busy monologuing to your evil twin." They lifted off, the vault closing behind them, the planet slowly dimming as the system's old defenses powered down. Severay watched Andon for a while. Then finally she smiled. "You're different now." "I'm wearing less panic, that's for sure." "Number, you understand what the symbol means. You no longer fear it. I think I still fear everything, but now I'm willing to make fun of it while doing something useful." Squeeb snorted. "That's leadership in a nutshell." Later, as the stars rolled past, Severay sat beside him in the cockpit. "Where to next?" she asked. "I don't know," Andon said honestly. "But the spiral is listening again. People are responding. We'll go where we're needed." Squeeb popped his head in. "Does this mean we get better snacks? I feel like galactic saviors should have access to premium chips." "I'll make it my first executive order." The ship hummed forward, past systems still blinking with doubt, through constellations caught between conflict and peace. Somewhere behind them, a vault closed for the last time, and ahead the spiral spun slowly, waiting for whatever came next. Andon leaned back, the weight of memory now something he could carry, not as a burden, but as a direction. He had started this journey in a storage closet, wearing an old uniform and a sense of accidental purpose. He now wore that purpose with intent, and, with luck, some snacks.